Hello, my name is Reko Lehti, and I'm one of the founders and partner at Taival Advisory. And I'm joined here today with Denny Wong from Sitra. Welcome. And Denny has been one of the leads for the Gaia-X hub coordinated by Sitra. And we had a pleasure of working together there in the project. So not many people necessarily know too much about Sitra, although it's a well-known topic. So can you tell us a little bit of what is Sitra doing at the moment?
Sure. Sitra is a Finnish innovation fund that was established about 70 years ago already. And the focus area that Sitra works on is actually building the future today. Right, so areas including what is the future of democracy, from that to what is an alternative economic model that we could have, for example, circular economy, and all the way to also using foresight to understand what is the major trends and how that impacts society. And one of those work is also within the fair data economy, which I work for. And within the fair data economy, the idea is to understand what are the new business model around data sharing and how we can create new business value through that. And this is where Gaia-X comes in. It's all around data sharing standards and also framework to build data spaces or data ecosystem.
Yeah, and our joint cooperation had a really interesting work on that regard, trying to understand how would companies actually be able to create joint value out of data and how to actually capture the value from the market. Where do you see Finland in general going in this? Finland's been with the Gaia-X topics quite actively in the Gaia-X environment. Do you see that value creation actually happening in the next few years?
It's an interesting question. About 2 years ago when we started Gaia-X Finland at Sitra, we had an objective or vision to try to bring more Finnish companies to get into this game of building data sharing projects. And that's for us was the key objective. And that's the reason also why we had this call for co-funding pilots. And we believe that the future of the fair data economy is actually building more value through an ecosystem, a network of companies. And what we also learned over these years is that it's actually a digital transformation project. From digitalizing processes to advanced digitalization, where network of companies connecting together, forming a group of companies coming together and co-create. And this is sort of like, I think, the future where we believe the Finland can play a key role there. Also based on building on the existing infrastructure in Finland, for example, is one of the most digitalized, with a high penetration of digitalization of companies, and also the concept of actually having open data, right? A lot of this open data movement started actually in Finland, right? From my data to open data and all that different initiative. So this is really playing a key role in how we believe that Finland could actually lead this charge.
And one of the interesting things about this project was also the possible socio-political impact that it has on the whole Europe. Trying to understand how does Europe actually take its place compared to US and compared to China and the other powers, trying to move around in this data space and creating maybe something of a European take onto this data.
And indeed, right? It's a very good point. And the Gaia-X initiative is indeed looking at trying to bring the European value into the business context, right? So a lot of words like self-sovereignty, right? But if you look at historically, the data economy is actually monopolized or occupied by the US, right? The big tech. This is what they have been building for the last 10, 15 years. And rightly so, because they are early movers and early adopters. And at this time, often in the digital world, winner takes all, right? And that's the US model, and that's one thing. And what we see now in the last 5 to 10 years is that the question comes to Europe, is like, what do we do then, right? And I think Europe is playing into their own strength now, because Europe, EU 27 is actually a very fragmented market, digitally or physically. So the question is that if we are fragmented, how can we actually make that into our strength? And hence comes the data ecosystem, right? The idea is to be able to connect all this fragmented market into one digital single market, right? If you look at the European Union or European Commission's objective is to allow people to travel freely, like Schengen in the 80s, and then come into free movement of goods, right? So that you can just, without a lot of issue, buy services or product across Europe. And now the next step is actually to also enable data to move freely. And not only just moving freely, but also access to data freely. So this is what we are building, and this is what Gaia-X is about, and having this standard to help data move and share across Europe.
And there we get to the interesting topic where we had a chance to work together, which is how do you then create value out of this, and how do you make it so that somebody feels that they should and could and they want to share that information? Because for the US, where the data is quite centralized for these few big companies, and then for Europe to start developing something where it's shared, where there is this data ownership is key, and then we need to create our own type of value creation method. So you said that you funded as Sitra some projects on that field, and that's where we work together. Do you want to open up a little bit? So what's going to happen? What's the future for these companies now then?
Sure. I think two parts to that. First part is, about 2 years ago when we started, we realized that one of the ways to get companies more into this game is actually to make them do things, right? And this is why we allocated up to 1 million euros co-funded funds. And we opened this call for proposal for companies to work together in a consortium and submit the data sharing projects or ideas. And through that, we actually co-funded 5 pilot projects from that. And the idea is then company can come together and experimenting, getting the hands dirty in building something concrete. Something concrete meaning building a new data product, a new services that they co-create together with other partners within the concept of sharing data across a data space. And that has been, of course, how we got in touch with Taiwan, right? So, and through that concept or through that call, we also allocate a part of the resources to help company to understand the business model. And this is where Taiwan comes in. The idea is to work with them to better understand what are the new business model, what value are created, how can we capture that value, how can we share that value within the ecosystem itself. So that's also has been proven to be very useful during the course of all this implementation.
And not just useful, but very, very interesting. Yeah. That was a really, really great project all around that. It seems almost all of the projects really required this outside-in view of so how are we going to exchange these euros, and how's it going to move around? So,
indeed, right. All these 5 projects, ranging from maritime data space initiative to air cargo logistic to skills in terms of talent, and also to agriculture. All these people, all these companies have very deep expertise and knowledge within their own sector. However, what often is lacking is the experience in building new data product and understanding new business model. And I think, again, this is where you come in to ask them right question, even sometimes to challenge certain assumption so that you actually come up with a clearer idea. Who are we building this product for? What value can this actually create? What are the market size, and how can we scale this? And how can we actually capture that value and then use that within the network to encourage also the collaboration itself, right? We understood that it's not always natural for companies to come together to compete sometimes. And we have a project that we have actually 2 competitors coming together to work together. So the equation is that 2 + 2 needs to be bigger than just 2. It has to be bigger for the ecosystem. And that is always hard for a company to make that jump. And this is why the work that you guys are doing is very valuable to help them step out of the box and look at it from a bigger picture, understand what it really means and how that could incentivize others to join.
And I guess maybe talking about the cooperation between then Taival and Sitra in here, I think Taival then at least to some extent brought that capability of trying to understand the value questions a little bit more broadly.
Yeah.
And there was some really good conversations and cooperations between us, especially during the project. So looking at this cooperation and having learned about Taival and the capabilities, what would you say to other companies maybe tackling similar topics, like the smaller companies or then these investors maybe as a second?
So I think one of the key role that Taival played within this project is that you have been the sparring partners for all these co-founded pilots to understand the business model part. You know, they have the idea that they would like to build data product, but not always have a clear idea how that business model look like. And what's more important is what is behind the business model. What are the economic drivers? What level will you be able to play with and adjust with? And I think you in this case, Taival has done tremendous work in helping company to understand that business model part. And you know, based on the feedback that we had from all the participants, everybody is giving you guys a top score for that. So I think that's a great job from Taival. You know, innovation can come in two ways: linear innovation, incremental improvement, whether you use data to improve efficiency, data to increase productivity. These are all very much what most of companies are doing now.
Sure.
The incremental linear innovation. And then you have the second type of innovation that I would say is disruptive innovation, that's non-linear. And this often requires companies to take a leap of faith, right? And that, because often it will challenge the existing business model. And it will change the way a company work and create new market, new business.
Sure.
And this is the hard part. And I like to think that in the data sharing sphere, both of these type of model or innovation is taking place.
For sure.
For some, they are just incremental. For others, really, they have the opportunity to do this disruptive part and to recognize that. Because once you recognize that, you know that the approach of dealing with these two innovations is two different ways. That's one thing. And second thing, when it comes to data sharing, I think the important is also to understand the value creation at the network level as a group of partners. And this is where then the new skills need to come in: orchestration of the data ecosystem, orchestration of the partners. And also the second part is the creation of new data product. You know, company has been creating products for a long time within the company, but data product is a different type of sets of animal, right?
Definitely.
And that's a different type of skill set also needed to do that. So that's the second point. And the third point I would say is the only way to really learn about this is by doing it. So start experimenting early as soon as you can. Don't work alone within your network, but work together with your network. So build it together with partners, co-create, learn how to co-create, learn how to build networks and partners together, and test and iterate and improve, right? I think that's the only best way to go forward. And I would say the same also for companies who are embarking in this journey, and also funders, people who would like to fund this project. I think this is a very crucial point to understand the roadmap to how we get to increase chance of success.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for me, I think the key learning is that you cannot maybe copy existing things because these business models do not exist yet. So it is this question of being able to pull companies together into one room and trying to think through, okay, how do we create something new that actually carries value with it, and that basically carries through all of the messages that you just said. So to close off, imagine that you walk out of that door now, and all of a sudden you find that there is a 10 million lottery ticket.
10 million lottery.
Yeah, exactly, 10 million euros, and you get to spend it all yourself. How do you spend it?
Well, that's a very good question. So I'll put half of it. I'll put half of it in the saving account just for interest.
That makes sense,
right? And then half of it is going to be invested in startups. Yeah, money makes money.
What kind of startups would that be then?
Well, I am very familiar with all the startup around software development, data space, digital. So that's definitely the place where you can actually 10x your investment, right? In the course of 2 to 5 years.
Sounds good. And I hope you would then employ Taival to do the analysis and find the euros in there.
Definitely. I mean, I think you guys done a good job. I mean, there's no reason why not to get you guys in.
Sounds good. Hey, thanks so much
Thank you, man.
for coming in.
Yeah.
Cheers.